is brave.
Thomas Gunn live in the WTJU Air studio. Awesome tune.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
These are all,
Very much.
at this point, that he has performed here tonight on the new CD, Conversations with a Wishing Well. Interestingly enough, back a year ago, you performed 2 tunes. I remember 2 tunes you performed then that were on this CD now.
Right, right. And what are you saying about why? What are you implying?
Well, I just see how it's an artist is always at work, always having new things in the can, and always busy with his art.
Well, it took a long time to get this recorded. Actually, I tried to record it at home first. You know, I invested in microphones and all kinds of stuff, and really ended up hitting a bit of a brick wall because no matter what I recorded, it ended up always sounding fairly just kind of like somebody was locked up in their own room trying to record a home recording. So some friends of mine were basically just trying to get me to just go into a studio and forget the overdubs and forget the extra equipment. Just go in and just put the stuff down. So I knew the perfect guy, Jeff Romano, to do it. And so I went in there and with really the intent to record 3 songs just to kind of get the frustration off my back and go back to the home recording. Did 3, and he said, okay, well, this is good. Can you give me some more? And I just basically just unloaded, a bunch of tunes I've been working on, some of which didn't go on the album, and eventually just got to where I had enough to actually have an album. So it was sort of kind of came out of nowhere, really, but he was very helpful in that he was trying to get me to play basically just for the emotion of the song and not the perfection of the song.
So these particular tunes were all done with no overdubs?
Yeah, no overdubs. And
basically live in the studio.
Yeah, yeah. And I did a few takes of each, here and there, and some were better than others, usually just because, I think the ones that were the best were the least self-conscious ones. And Jeff was great about putting me in the right zone to get to that performance. He really drew that out of me, so I'm very thankful to him.
Was this the first time you worked with Jeff, or did you work with him on a previous work?
I've recorded with him before, but this was the first time it was just a full-on project. So we were friends before this, but I would say stronger friends now.
Do you have another tune you want to play for us?
Sure. What do you want to hear? "Hard to Be Human"?
Sure.
So this here song is just to break the ice up a little bit. This is the new direction after the fairy tale la-di-da stuff, which is going to be country music. And so I've got a few done, and this is the most recent one. It's called "Hard to Be a Human." House is cold and the air is calm. The windows closed, the shades are drawn. Darkest night I've ever known. I guess I'm spending it alone. Clock is ticking on the shelf. I'm here sitting by myself, and time is a-licking at the heels of this throne. Got no kingdom anymore. Well, that's my crown there on the floor. There's that sound of a slamming door. That's her suitcase waiting in the hall. That's my dinner on the wall. Well, there are things one shouldn't do when you're sitting at the table. Certain words you never say unless you were brought up in a stable where it's hard to be a human with no reason in your mind as to why you'd be a human when you ain't the humankind. It's so hard hard to be a human, but you don't seem to understand that it's hard to be a human when all you are is just a man, just a man, just a man.
Hard to be a Human, a new tune. It's not on any CD at this point. Debuted for us right here on Folk and Beyond. Now, I want to talk with Thomas a little bit about a subject. He brought it up a little bit there. He started talking about fairy tales and what all these fairy tales meant.
Okay.
And we've had some conversations about fairy tales and what they mean, and also Art Wheeler was in, and he did a show about Aesop's fables. A lot of people think it's Aesop's fables, but as Art relayed to me, that Aesop was comes from dark skin, very dark skin, and therefore dark fables. And it's pronounced Aesop and not Aesop, and I think it might have come from Ethiopia, the darkest color of complexion, either from Ethiopia or Egypt. I can't remember which one he said, but somewhere they're both right there. But the darkness in fairy tales, in Grimm's fairy tales, and some of these ideas, thoughts, and attitudes, I want to give a little disclaimer here about the darkness. They represent all of the thoughts that Thomas Gunn has on this, and they in no way represent what WTJU or Aer Stephen or
just a cotton picking
the
second
University
there,
of Virginia.
Mr. Poindexter. But
they may. There's just a bit of a disclaimer. These are Thomas's theories, and I thought they were very, very interesting, and so. Tell us about your theory about fairy tales and what they meant, and the kids and the darkness of the fairy tales.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. I have no idea what you're talking about, and we've never had that conversation. So where should we go from here, Doctor?
It's not true.
I don't know. I mean, I think that fairy tales are cathartic, and I think they're cathartic in the same way that dreams are, which is one is in the waking world pretty much locked into an analytical way of living. And, you know, fairy tales just represent like an ability to break the logger jam that is everyday existence, I think. Especially nowadays, you know, I was reading an article in the Newsweek about, I mean, who knows who's writing these things, but it was sort of interesting about, it was called mind freeze. And the idea is that there's so much information that's coming at us these days that it's getting to the point where it's impossible to process all the information in the way that has been done in the past, which is to take each bit of information you get and analyze it, process it, and then, you know, make a decision based on that. You know, it's getting to the point where you either have to just let it go and work instinctively in order to make a decision, or your mind just cracks. That's where dreams and sleep really play such a large, important role in our lives, which is that they allow us to, I don't know, go insane. And I mean, if you were to think of all the dreams and all the images, I mean, man, I should tell you the ones I had last night, but I won't.
Darn.
Unless you really want me to. You know, I mean, there has to be some way to release, and I think fairy tales, I think fairy tales are an old and very effective way of doing that. It's basically the unconscious that's accepted in that I don't know, whatever.
But you've studied this from a historical sense as well, in some of the fairy tales that we talked about, such as Grimm's fairy tales, that have a very dark type of message where they basically scared the snot out of these kids. The fairy tale was not a fairy tale of joy, and it was, you know, the demon under the bed, the thing that would happen if you didn't behave right, the Hansel and Gretel through the forest.
The Strulpeter kind of thing. Yeah, well, I think for kids, it's good to know. That's a very sort of black and white way of being able to see the world, where bad people get their just desserts, you know, and you have to behave a certain way, or else you're going to be taken by the troll under the bridge, or sent over a a waterfall in a barrel studded with nails. I mean, there are all these horrific things, but I think what they do is they actually make the world feel safer to children, because it's so extreme in terms of one way or the other, good and bad. So I think that's that level.
You talked about Irish folk songs and some of the older folk songs that I think it was Irish, wasn't it? That you thought that they had a birth or a history or a origins in this kind of feeling, that was an underlying message that maybe adults would hear, but the children wouldn't?